Starting off with number 10, the royal treatment is a real thing proven by King Charles III, who does not have to pay a dime in inheritance taxes. This is a win for Charles since he gained a rather large inheritance after the unfortunate passing of his mother, Queen Liz. In comparison, regular British folk have to pay around 40% in taxes on an inheritance on anything upwards of $375,000. The decision that the British monarch would not have to pay an inheritance tax came about in 1993 when former Prime Minister John Major agreed to a tax arrangement with the royal family. Major said, in the unique circumstances of a hereditary monarchy, special arrangements are needed for inheritance tax. I guess instead of eating the rich, we're treating the rich. Forbes estimated he inherited his mother's portfolio worth $500 million, to which not a dime goes anywhere except the king, including the $42 billion fortune belonging to the crown. This tax deal also exempts them from paying income tax, a deal to which Queen Elizabeth and now King Charles both agreed to do so anyway. So if you ever wanted to know how to stay rich, the easiest way to do so is by being a royal to avoid paying taxes. Number 9 on our countdown, I'm still trying to figure out how I can insert myself into the royal family to avoid taxes, but let's talk about their multiple iconic properties. I understand that they're royal, but sometimes it just feels like they're showing off. Along with having Buckingham Palace under the belt, the royals have made a point to invest in numerous properties across the country and even internationally. But forget about all that for a second. I have a theory that all these properties actually have secret passageways and lead to other worlds. Or what if they're all connected? Yeah, they have a pretty big family and investing in property is a great source of income, but when it comes to these mysterious royals, there has to be more than what is shown on surface level, right? With a total of 30 regal estates, the family owns a 50,000-acre estate in Norfolk, the infamous Kensington Palace, a couple cottages, castles, forts, and more. By the time I finish this list, I think the next in line of succession will be appointed, so all I'm gonna say is that the double-digit number of properties are nothing less than intriguing. Fun fact, if you ever wanted to stay at a new property every month, it would take 2.5 years to finish the tour. Seriously, I need to find out how to become a royal expeditiously. At some point, we're gonna have to talk about the difference in the lifestyle of the royal family compared to literally everyone else. Unlike government officials, the family does not have to disclose non-public information and can keep whatever they like a secret. Anything can be kept a secret, so they're literally above the law. If this family is actually a bunch of aliens who just decided they'll be living completely different lives than everyone, for one, we'd never know unless they wanted to share that information with us, and two, no one can really go interrogating or investigating this family. That's kind of flabbergasting if you ask me. The late Queen, to a degree, had an open door policy in which she was okay with sharing information, but we have seen times where major court cases go away from the public eye and fast. And just in case you're wondering, staff needs to sign NDAs that make sure that they don't expose information against the royal family's will. Aside from the fact that Liz was a queen for nearly 70 years, being one of the wealthiest women in the world comes with a price. People who are out here trying to get rid of you. Did you know that every time the Queen visits the state opening of Parliament, the royal household must take a hostage? As much as it sounds like a movie, that is in fact true. The rule dates back to the time when Parliament and the royals were not besties. To assure the Queen would return safely, the royal household thought it was best to take a member of Parliament with them to the ceremony in case anything bad were to happen to the late Queen. And this still happens to this day, despite the fact that the relationship between the royals and Parliament isn't terrible anymore. But it's just a precaution. The chosen MP is kept perfectly safe and taken care of throughout the ceremony. So it's definitely risky, but why not chill out with the royals for a bit, right? I mean, it's not like they'd have a choice. On to number 6, speaking of not having a choice when it comes to the head of the monarch, the royal family's protection officers are literally paid to put the royals before themselves. As wild as it is to think about, protection officers will put their own lives at risk to save the monarchy. And yeah, it might be good money, but at the risk of your own life is kind of insane to think about. I don't know how much money I would be willing to accept if it were to protect someone else's life. Would you do it? It's pretty common with most protection services when it comes to important people, and we've seen it in action movies during assassination attempts where the security makes the heroic dive. Having that much wealth really comes with a price tag. You can either live rich or lose your life saving the rich person. When it comes to living large, the royal family is never shy about their well-funded trips. Their huge travel budget has more to do than just them having a lot of money. If you're regal, you gotta live it up. It's the only way. With one trip back in 2017 costing them $5.8 million, it puts into perspective how much thought they must be putting when traveling. Their tradition is more of a protocol based around security fears. Family members of the same line are not allowed to travel in the same plane together, so that in case of an accident, wiping the royal lineage is prevented. That tradition has only once been broken by Prince William when he flew to Canada in the same plane as Prince George, who will succeed him one day in the future. He did, however, ask for the Queen's permission beforehand. It still was a risky move. A few other protocols they follow when traveling include color-coded luggage, sticking with an entourage, and packing a black outfit just in case they need to attend an emergency funeral. They also take extremely short trips. When you're as regal as the royals and are known for your wealth, it is a precaution not to trust anyone, not even yourself. Out of fear of being poisoned, the royals have to avoid certain foods such as shellfish when they eat out so they don't run the risk of getting food poisoning. Similarly, they skip rare red meat, so they may be eating good, but they're missing out on the really good stuff. I cannot imagine giving up shrimp or oysters. They're just too good to risk out of fear of food poisoning. Another way the royals prevent any sort of food-related mishap, they do the absolute most to ensure the food they're eating is safe. When catering for the royals' engagements in Wales, a satellite kitchen was set up in the grounds of Cardiff Castle. Then food would be transferred into the banquet on foot. If catering was done for a heads of state banquet, the catering staff would have to meet at a police station and get a motorcycle ride into Cardiff Castle. For higher caliber banquets, they were required to put all food, containers, knives, and kitchen equipment through an X-ray machine, followed by a ride to the castle on a motorcycle. Talk about having a large budget. X-ray machines for food is crazy to think about, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Sometimes when you're insanely rich, you just gotta have duplicates of all your outfits. Moving on to number 3, the royals think of everything when it comes to how they're presenting themselves when stepping out the castle. Just in case of spills or stains, the royals make sure they have an easy to change duplicate of their outfit. I get it, with the amount of pics that are taken of the family, I would hate finding out I had pasta sauce on my shirt all day through pictures. The types of things this family thinks about make us laugh, but they're really serious about certain things that we would literally never think about. The royal protocols are no joke to these regal people. But again, it all comes down to the massive wealth they have. They have the time and energy to think about and afford certain things that wouldn't make sense to us regular people. Counting down to number 2, the bloodline runs deep, and there are definitely a lot of things members of the family aren't familiar with. As they say, a lot of things can be taken to the grave, except when there are people curious enough to go discover some stuff out for themselves. As we all know, the royals have been exposed countless times throughout the history of the monarchy. As rich as they are, one can only imagine the possible ways their wealth has been accumulated, and tax fraud is in fact on the list. The late Queen Liz was once exposed for hiding her embarrassing wealth from the public. Imagine being so rich you yourself are embarrassed by it? That doesn't even make sense to my regular non-royal brain. Queen Liz's private lawyer was said to literally change laws so that accurate information about her wealth would not be disclosed to the public. And although the true scale of how much the Queen was holding onto was never publicly announced, we can only assume it's no less than hundreds of millions of pounds. Her Royal Highness invested at least $13 million into offshore tax-sheltered funds in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda. This led party leaders and anti-monarchists towards an investigation of the Queen's private funds, which led them to discover that the Queen was avoiding $15 million in taxes on her $680 million duchy. If that isn't some royalty, I don't know what is. And last on the list of top 10 lies the royal family has told about their wealth, the family will do anything to keep the wealth within the family, and I mean anything. Marrying inside the family is a common theme when it comes to how these royal couples came to be. As sick as it is to us, the monarchy keeps their fortune as close to the family as possible by marrying their own relatives. In no way can I defend the royals here because that is definitely sick behavior, but I'm sure it's easier to introduce your partner to your family and you don't even have to worry about whether or not the family would like them. Everyone talks about their family tree, but I'd say it's more of a wreath if you start counting the number of times their relationships wrap around. When looking back at the reign of Queen Victoria, her 63 years and 216 days of rule became known as the Victorian era, a period even non-history buffs have heard of. What some may not know about Miss Vicky is that she married her cousin. The couple first met on Victoria's 17th birthday in April 1836 when she was heir to the British throne. Their uncle King Leopold I introduced them. In their memoirs, Albert and Victoria record that they almost instantly fell in love. I have no words. Together, the cousins went on to have 9 children together, 4 boys and 5 girls. So if their kids wanted to ask how they met, would they be all like, yeah, I fell in love with my cousin during a family function? That is wild. The cousin-loving gene was passed further down the family tree, or wreath, whatever we want to call it. The romanticization of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth's relationship wasn't enough to overshadow their relations like it was with Victoria and Albert. Philip was related to Queen Victoria as a great-great-grandson through his maternal side, and while Liz was related to Queen Victoria from her father's side. I'm sure there have been many other occasions of royal DNA sharing, but spouse sharing is another interesting aspect of royal life. In 1970, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's only daughter, Princess Anne, once dated Andrew Park Bowles. Just a few years later, Andrew went on to marry Camilla, who married Charles in 2005 after having a long affair with him during his marriage to Princess Diana. If you couldn't catch all that, I'll make it easier for you. So imagine your sibling marrying someone who shares the same ex as you. Weird. A lot of passing around going on behind the royal palace doors. If that wasn't weird enough, sibling hopping has happened in the royal family too. Are we shocked? As a prince, Charles and Princess Diana were married for 15 years, which is impressive considering their rocky relationship and many affairs. However, the two were actually introduced by Diana's sister, Sarah, whom Prince Charles dated prior to his relationship with Diana. While not illegal or technically wrong, this information detail about the king is bizarre. Rich people, man, they're weird. Starting off with number 10, traditions. Now that King Charles has become king, Camilla's royal title has made quite a bit of news. Considering her status as his second wife and the grief that washed over Britain following the loss of his former wife, Princess Diana, we all know how much the people of Britain admired Princess Di when Charles and her were still together. And even after she left the palace, Diana was still known as the people's princess and even the Queen of Hearts. Charles and the royal household have moved carefully on the matter, mindful of lingering public perceptions of Camilla as the third person that ruined the marriage between Charles and the beloved princess. Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, will be known as Queen Consort, a title that came with Queen Elizabeth's blessing after years of contention dating back to the days before she even married King Charles. It wasn't always a given that the 75-year-old Camilla would take the title, even though it gives her none of the sovereign's powers. But over the decades, Camilla has won over large parts of the British public with her discretion, down-to-earth personality, and loyalty to her husband. A May 2022 poll found that just 20% of the British public believed that Camilla should take on the title of Queen Consort, with nearly 40% believing that she should still be called the Princess Consort. Charles also has big shoes to fill now that he is king. Another poll results list Charles as the 7th most popular royal family member, with nearly a quarter of Brits saying they disapprove of him. By contrast, Queen Elizabeth's approval rating on the day of her passing was at a high of 75%. Camilla's new title expands her role at his coronation, which will likely not come for several months as per standard royal tradition. When Camilla and Charles married in a low-key civil ceremony in 2005, she was in fact the new Princess of Wales, Diana's title, but she styled herself the Duchess of Cornwall instead. Palace officials said for years that Camilla intended to be known as Princess Consort instead of the traditional Queen Consort when Charles acceded to the throne. Downs recalled a reception held for her. She went around and spoke to everybody there, and I just can't imagine how tiring that must have been. I came away with a lot of respect for her and her style. Seems like Camilla made sure she would have a better reputation before Charles became king. Smart thinking, Camilla. On to number 9, Queen Liz and the public's acceptance. During a message to mark the 70th anniversary of her accession to the throne, Queen Elizabeth determined that Camilla would become Queen Consort when Charles takes the throne. Historically, in a monarchy, it is customary for the wife of the reigning monarch to automatically become queen when their husband ascends to the throne. In rare instances, when monarchies don't use the term Queen Consort, then the spouse may go by the title of Princess Consort. The Queen made a statement at the time: "I would like to express my thanks to you all for your support. I remain eternally grateful for and humbled by the loyalty and affection that you continue to give me. And when in the fullness of time my son Charles becomes king, I know you will give him and his wife Camilla the same support that you have given me. And it is my sincere wish that when that time comes, Camilla will be known as Queen Consort as she continues her loyal service." She received the blessings of the late Queen herself, which helped the public accept her. On to number 8. Scandals. Though Camilla is married to the now King of England, she was not always guaranteed the title of Queen. Charles and Camilla married back in 2005, and at the time, the Prince of Wales website said she would take the title of Princess Consort, not Queen, if and when Charles ascended to the throne. Of course, this is both Charles and Camilla's second marriage. The new king was famously married to Diana, Princess of Wales, from 1981 to 96 when they divorced. Diana later passed away in a car crash in 1997. Camilla was previously married as well to British Army officer Andrew Parker Bowles. They divorced in 95, though Charles and Camilla carried on a romance for years while they were married to other people. History shows us that a princess consort title would have been unusual. Over the years, Camilla has gained Queen Elizabeth's trust, something publicly acknowledged when she was appointed to the Order of the Garter in late 2021, the highest honor the monarchy can bestow, notes Christine Contino, chief reporter at Royal Central and author of A House Full of Windsor. Camilla has come a long way in terms of public favor since the Diana days. It's always been said that Charles would prefer her to be known as his queen, which is understandable. Counting down to number 7, public acceptance. Camilla has gradually gained more acceptance from a public that once held little warmth for her before her marriage to Charles, remembering her ongoing involvement with him during his ultimately doomed marriage to Diana. Now, however, with the latest appointment, Camilla has become a member of the highest order within the UK's honor system. Unlike most other honors, which are awarded on the advice of the government and are selected by expert committees, this is in the direct gift of the Queen, said Craig Prescott, a constitutional expert at Bangor University in Wales. This is entirely her decision. The core of the order, however, are the 24 knights and ladies. They tend to be senior figures from public life, including former prime ministers. And then there are the royal knights and ladies, the category Camilla has joined and to which other members of the royal family are appointed. Number 6, Princess Consort. Before they married, it had been announced that Camilla would be known as Princess Consort and not Queen when the time came. But putting that idea out in the public domain may have been something of a PR exercise, no? The Princess Consort title was an ill-advised invention at the time of their marriage to make Camilla more acceptable when sympathy for Diana was still running high. Prince Charles's advisors tried to hedge the issue at the time by saying that it was only intended that Camilla be Princess Consort. Princess Consort is a lesser title, and an act of parliament ratified by the Commonwealth realms would be needed for Camilla to be given it. The process could create unnecessary controversy and prevent a smooth transition for Charles. Number 5, Queen Consort. The Queen's recent announcement was likely intended to gain more support for Camilla. As they say, Princess Diana fans could feel hostile towards the idea of Camilla becoming queen. With the heightened hostility towards Camilla becoming Queen Consort, we are seeing more conversations about defining the Queen Consort role to differentiate between Queen Elizabeth's reign and responsibilities and what Camilla's position will look like. It's important to note that the Duchess of Cornwall is solely dependent on Prince Charles for her position. Schofield went on to say, when Prince or King Charles dies, Prince William immediately becomes king. Camilla could be officially crowned Queen Consort in a ceremony following Charles's elaborate coronation, according to the royal website. Unless decided otherwise, a Queen Consort is crowned with the king in a similar but simpler ceremony, the royal website states. If the new sovereign is a queen, her consort is not crowned or anointed at the coronation ceremony. Number 4, line of succession. In the British monarchy, the spouse of the reigning monarch does not take the throne if their partner dies. So, if King Charles were to pass away, then the throne would be passed on to his eldest son, Prince William, who is first in the line of succession. If this were to happen, it isn't fully clear how Parker Bowles' role would change. It is likely that she might be referred to as the Queen Dowager, which is a term given to the widows of late kings. Meanwhile, if she were the mother of Prince William, then she would be referred to as the Queen Mother, which is how Queen Elizabeth's mother was referred to following the passing of King George VI in 1952. But since Camilla is not the mother of the Prince of Wales, it might ultimately be up to William to determine what she is called if King Charles were to pass. Number 3, Camilla's children. Camilla and Charles have no children together, but she has 2 grown children from her first marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles, Tom Parker and Laura Lopez. Will they be elevated in some way by being related to a princess consort or king's consort or queen? It isn't likely. Tom, who is a well-known food critic and cookbook author, does help with Camilla's reading room project, and Laura's daughter Eliza was a bridesmaid in William and Kate's wedding. But other than that, we don't see the Parker Bowles family out too often at royal events. Aside from attending the coronation or possibly some other big royal celebrations, it is unlikely that Charles will give them titles. On to number 2, the People's Consort. A 70-something queen consort talking about difficult issues like domestic violation and female genital mutilation is, some might say, a queen for the modern world. And while Charles and Camilla may not represent youth and glamour like the Cambridges, together with William and Kate, they formed a new sort of Fab Four. At an age where retirement should be on the horizon, Camilla is in for the long haul, something her family says she is fully willing to embrace. She is very strong, resilient, and patient, says Elliot. She is also very committed to supporting her husband in all he does and very forthright in supporting the causes she believes in. She's practical and very determined, says Kelly. I think as queen that will be very important, and she's clearly a great supporter of Charles. They are a great couple, and I think together they will build a platform for getting society to care about vulnerability. Perhaps Camilla's greatest success is that she has never tried to upstage Charles, nor has she tried to shape the role to her advantage. I think that she proves the power of silence, says Claire. She's found her place, and I think that's partly down to knowing she has been accepted. It's like a ship sailing across the ocean. She's finally gotten to her destination. And finally, number 1, low maintenance. While she makes the job look fun and breezy, Camilla finds the overseas travel hard work. She is low maintenance, traveling with a small entourage that includes a private secretary, personal assistant, dresser, and hairdresser. She often does her own makeup and travels lighter than her husband, but she doesn't enjoy flying and can't bear the heat. She sometimes struggles to keep up with the workaholic prince who doesn't break for lunch. From very early on, she clearly said, "I am not going to go at the same pace as the boss," says Harrison. "I'm not going to do 5 engagements a day without any lunch and then do 2 engagements in the evening. It's just, you know, the boss can do that. I can't." So real, Camilla. I wouldn't either. Charles is keen to make sure that his wife doesn't burn out. Their marriage is very much an equal partnership founded on a deep love and a mutual understanding. They love and respect each other and laugh at the same things, says Elliot. She will always see the absurd in many things and does not take herself too seriously and is very witty.
Starting off today's top 10, royal wills are never made public. Among their many other secrets, add $500 million worth of the Queen's personal wealth to the list. Her jewels, art collection, investments, and a couple properties are just a few things part of the fortune. Next in line of succession is King Charles, who will probably be inheriting most of this depending on what Queen Liz decided to share in the will. The Queen's private property, inherited from her father, includes Balmoral Castle in Scotland and Sandringham in the UK. Like all other members of the royal family, the Queen had a will to determine who will inherit her resources. The Queen's heir, King Charles, will inherit Balmoral Castle and Sandringham House. The Crown Estate's property, including Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Holyrood Palace, and a variety of other items including the crown jewels, an art collection, and archives, will also remain the property of the reigning King Charles in his official capacity. Between the private property and the state assets, both may go to the king, and all of the official assets which are held in trust for the nation, like the art and jewels. Most of the royal family's wealth adds up to $21 billion in land, property, and investments. These guys are so loaded, I might have to call them up to swing over a couple million. I know it won't hurt their deep pockets. All of this wealth will eventually be passed down to Prince William, who is now first in line to the British throne. Oh, to be the King of England. The future king will also inherit the $1.2 billion private Duchy of Cornwall estate from his father. By the time Will's oldest son becomes king, I wonder how much more their wealth will be worth. Number 9 on our list of things Prince William will inherit is the sovereign grant. The crown jewels, estimated to be worth at least 3 billion British pounds, belong to the Queen and would automatically be transferred to her successor. The Queen's private wealth will be added to Charles's own, which has been estimated at $100 million. In comparison, Elizabeth's late husband, Prince Philip, left an estate worth 10 million British pounds, including an art collection of 3,000 pieces, most of which were given to family and friends. Number 8. The Queen, whose wealth will be shared with her descendants, also inherited quite a bit from her ancestors too. Being part of the royal line may come with a lot of responsibility, but it also comes with a lot of money. Obviously, we're not surprised, but it is crazy to see how much money they keep within their family. I wouldn't be surprised to find out they are worth much more than they share with the public, knowing how sneaky and secretive they are. Ooh. Before Charles ascended to the throne, his net worth was around $440 million. His wealth was amassed from the Duchy of Cornwall, a private estate fund for charities and private organizations. As king, Charles inherited the Duchy of Lancaster, a private estate of commercial, agricultural, and residential assets owned by royalty since the Middle Ages. On the other hand, Charles will lose the Duchy of Cornwall, another private estate in southwest England. It brought in a revenue surplus of some 23 million British pounds in 2021 to 2022. The monarch is not legally obligated to pay income tax, capital tax, or inheritance tax, but the new king is expected to follow in his mother's footsteps and pay the income tax. The Queen's personal assets are also expected to be eventually passed down to Will. Counting down to number 7, King Charles inherits not just the throne, but also the Queen's private fortune, without having to pay inheritance tax. Seriously, being that rich and not having to pay taxes, no wonder the monarchy is worth billions. And since British monarchs don't need to reveal their private finances, it is known that the Queen was worth more than $426 million, 5 million British pounds more than the previous year. Most of the late sovereign's personal wealth will be passed down to Charles, without the British government getting a slice. The real royal wealth, the Crown Estate lands and the royal collection of art and jewelry, plus official residences and royal archives, is held by the monarchy as an institution. As such, they will only pass down to Charles in trust. Similarly, the crown jewels, estimated to be worth at least 3 billion British pounds, only belonged symbolically to the Queen and were automatically transferred to her successor. The Queen's private wealth will be added to Charles's own. He most likely will inherit a larger portion of wealth than what Charles got. Number 6. The Queen may have left a large portion for her family, but the late Prince Philip also left a good amount of money and assets for the future monarchy. An estate worth 10 million British pounds, including an art collection of some 3,000 works, were given to family and friends. The properties include farmlands, homes, mineral mining grounds, and even the Oval Cricket Ground in London. The duchy was last valued at around £1 billion at the end of March, and thanks to the inheritance, William will soon become the most significant landowner in the entire country. The duchy was established way back in 1337 when Edward III wanted to ensure financial independence for his son, Prince Edward. According to the agreement of the duchy, the estate will be passed on to every Duke of Cornwall in order to ensure that the tradition lives on. Dating all the way back to the 1300s is crazy, but it's interesting to know they kept this tradition alive. Down to number 5, the annual sovereign grant from the UK Treasury is set at 15% of the profits from the Crown Estate, which the monarch surrenders to the government under a deal made all the way back in 1760. The sovereign grant covers costs of official engagements for the monarch and other senior members of the royal family, along with paying staff and the upkeep of royal palaces. In 2021 to 2022, it was set at 86.3 million British pounds, equivalent to $2 per person in the UK, and included funding for the renovation of Buckingham Palace. $2 per person isn't too crazy, but clearly it added up when you think about how many people in the UK there are. The Crown Estate's portfolio includes commercial and retail properties, prime locations in central London, and rural and coastal land across the country. They also own a part of the waters around England and Wales. It's no surprise they are one of Europe's biggest property empires. Inheritance tax in Britain is charged at 40% on estates above a 325,000 British pound threshold. But the new king will not pay inheritance tax on the personal wealth he will inherit from his mother due to rules drawn up in 1993. So it's been established how much wealth there is among the family to pass down onto future generations. Being one of late Princess Diana's sons, what will future King William inherit from his mom? At number 4, Diana reportedly had a net worth of about $31.5 million. This included all of her funds, stock investments, and physical objects like jewelry and clothing. Her £17 million divorce settlement from Prince Charles is also included in this. The princess's estate was divided between several different people, including her longtime butler, Paul Burrell, and her many godchildren. Of course, her primary beneficiaries were her beloved sons, William and Harry. In her will, Diana established a discretionary fund which would help Will and Harry and their future families. £100,000 reportedly went into that fund, in addition to accumulated interest and income from the assets of the fund. Number 3, Diana was very particular in what she wanted to leave for her sons, and lucky for Harry, who stepped down from his royal duties, whatever he inherited from Princess Diana made his transition out of the palace easier. Other than her funds, Diana left many sorts of material possessions for her sons and godchildren. The day after she signed the original will, Lady Diana composed an additional document called the Letter of Wishes, specifying that she wanted to be done with her jewelry and other material possessions. The letter requested that 75% of these personal effects, called chattels in the UK, be evenly distributed between William and Harry. She even specifically stated in the letter that she hoped that her sons' eventual wives would one day be able to wear her jewelry. Thinking about her future daughter-in-laws, it was clear how much Diana loved her sons. Number 2, other things Will will inherit from Diana were included in a request she had made for the distribution of her material possessions from the discretionary fund. She wanted the remainder of her estate to be divided between her sons once they turned 25. Since they were just teens when she passed away, the estate was placed in a trust. The executors of the trust Diana added to the will in February 1996 were her mother and her sister. Unfortunately, Diana's vision of her inheritance didn't quite come true the way she envisioned it. A few months after Diana's passing, her mother and sister made a variance to the will known as the arrangement. This variation order postponed the date Harry and William would inherit their share of the estate. Though they could still receive interest from the trust upon turning 25, they wouldn't inherit the full sum until they turned 30. By the time both princes were 30, the residuary estate was worth about $16 million for each of them. And that wasn't the only change that the executors made. The arrangement also altered the amount of property that Diana's 17 godchildren received. Number 1, last but not least, part of the property that fell into William and Harry's possession was their mother's wedding dress. The David and Elizabeth Emanuel designed gown with a 25-foot long train, which remains the longest in British royal wedding history, was passed down to the princes as part of her will. Like the rest of the residuary estate, it became the property of her sons when they turned 30. Before then, it belonged to Diana's brother, Earl Spencer. On Harry's 30th birthday in September 2014, the breathtaking silk gown was finally passed down. After Diana's passing, each of her sons were allowed to choose a keepsake from her most beloved belongings at Kensington Palace. Prince William chose a gold Cartier Tank Francaise watch, given to the princess by her father. After her divorce, Diana was frequently photographed wearing this watch, and William knew his mother would have wanted him to have it. Harry chose a stunning blue 12-karat sapphire and diamond ring that Prince Charles purchased for his bride-to-be in 1981. However, the brothers agreed that whichever of them got engaged first would be allowed to pass the ring on to his fiancée. So, when William was preparing to pop the question to Kate Middleton, Harry gave the ring to his big brother. As cute as it is, Harry also got to pay tribute to his late mother with his engagement. Harry designed Meghan's ring himself, and the 2 diamonds on either side of the larger one came from Diana's personal collection. We're sure the People's Princess would be absolutely touched. With the countless ways the royal family surprises us, whether it's with their over-the-top tours and trips across the world, or through their generous services, it's clear this royal family takes their lavish lifestyle very seriously. So as we continue following the family and watch them announce the next heir to the throne, it will always be entertaining to watch how rich the royals really are and how they pass down their fortune. William seems to be in for a treat by the time he becomes king. The portfolio of properties and assets, along with the several streams of income this family is making, I still can't get over how they don't pay taxes. But I guess that's the upside of the royal and lavish lifestyle. Comment below if you think William will be a good king once that title is passed down to him. I personally think he'll be
Number 10, media. Diving into number 10, do we really need to talk about the many times this couple has brought up the royal family after stepping down? Meghan and Harry managed to get a whole lot of attention after their announcement to move out of the palace, which eventually led them to stepping down. Now, obviously the British media does not take this news lightly, with many outlets creating stories not supporting the royals or their decision. And then they dropped the CBS special with Oprah, which caused a whole lot of controversy, just in case you forgot. But that wasn't even the best part. From claims that Meghan and Harry got married before the televised wedding, to Harry saying they were cut off financially from his dad, King Charles, the messy interview just got messier for the Sussexes. I think the most mind-blowing part about all of this was all the lying they had done to push the victim agenda. And I'm obviously not going to invalidate their experience because, well, for one, I wasn't there when all the claims were made, so I wouldn't know. But some claims, such as the fact that they had been married before the televised wedding, was quickly shut down by the Archbishop of Canterbury. Big yikes. So the question stands, why did they decide to make some stuff up for this tell-all interview? Number 9, Harry and Meg docuseries. Since the backlash from the interview didn't seem to do anything to Harry and Meg, it was followed by this tell-all docuseries that dives into the personal lives of the couple and their experiences at the royal castle, which they felt was mandatory to share with the rest of the world. And just to be clear, this caused just as much, if not more, backlash, with more people questioning why the couple keeps sharing all these personal stories after claiming they want to keep their personal lives away from the media attention. Many people have questioned if this couple decided to drop this Netflix miniseries to make extra cash, since it doesn't seem the royal inheritances is enough to keep their family stable. And what would be better than milking the story of the royal family and exposing them for money? Obviously, the royal family did not appreciate these attempts from the couple to bring them more attention while trying to give them a bad rep, but to be fair, the couple themselves don't have the greatest reputation among many people. It's all subjective. And then of course, Harry targeted the British media and their attempts to exploit the royal family. During the 3rd episode of the series, Harry describes the role that royal correspondents, those who specialize in coverage and analysis of the royal family for newspapers and tabloids, play in the British media. They're an extended PR arm of the royal family, he said. There's been an agreement that's been there for over 30 years. In the documentary, Harry says he was chased by paparazzi 30 or 40 times in his youth, particularly while attending school. He said the UK tabloid media believes the royal family is ours to exploit. Their trauma is our story and our narrative to control. During the opening episode, Harry says it's part of his responsibility as a member of the royal family to expose how the British tabloids operate. I feel as though being part of this family, it is my duty to uncover this exploitation and bribery that happens within our media. Well, you're not a working member of the royal family, Harry, and now it seems like you've joined the tabloids to exploit the royals too. Is that a coincidence? Number 8, leaving the family. Once the couple officially left the family, it seemed as if there was only one thing Meg and Harry were chasing: the bag. Since they don't make money as working members of the royals, they have made commercial arrangements where it seems like the only thing keeping them relevant is the fascination with them fleeing the royal family, which I can't lie is a pretty savage move. But then what was even more savage of them was when they started finding ways to get paid by exposing some private matters of the royals. The late Queen was pretty upset with the way they handled the situation and how much they were planning on milking the family post-departure. Once they moved to LA, it was a wrap. Meg had no other choice but get back into the industry. Not necessarily acting, but having her own podcast where she chats with famous women about real issues. The $25 million deal with Spotify is just one of the many deals this couple has signed to make sure the money is flowing. Number 7, deals. The couple claims to have given up a lot to start a whole new life, but did they? So far, most things they have been doing involve the fact that they haven't given up some aspects of the life they were once living. For one, the title of Harry and Meg's foundation caused some royal drama because they were told they were no longer allowed to use Royal Sussexes. They eventually came to an agreement that the title will be revised after the spring of 2020. Other Other ways it just doesn't seem that the couple has let go completely is by the fact that they are profiting off the grief they experienced from the royals and sharing it with people in different forms, like the series, interviews, and even the new memoir Harry dropped, Spare, which focuses greatly on how he dealt with all the royal drama and his experience in many incidences throughout his life. Another way they just can't seem to let go is through the lies they make to create stories that bring them attention. Back to the series, which was just so outrageous, there are pictures showing them leaving the castle, which they claim was taken without their permission, which was later debunked by the photographer who said he had access and permission to take the picture. So awkward, because if you're gonna share an experience, at least give a truthful story with it. But what do you guys think? How long does this couple have before people become tired of this narrative, which doesn't seem to be the most credible? Number 6. Family drama. Where do I even begin? After Harry had a discussion with Will about Meg, an argument was created, according to Spare, the new memoir, where Will, future king, pushed Harry onto the floor. Prince Harry talks about the hierarchy in the video. He says, "You know there's leaking, but there's also planning of stories. No one knows the full truth. We know the full truth." Number 5, now that Meghan Markle is no longer an official part of the royals, she's been dishing about Prince Harry's side of the family. What was life really like inside of the palace? A little frosty, according to The American. Markle claimed there was a lack of warmth at royal family gatherings and finds all the standoffish behavior very odd. Her sister-in-law Kate is apparently the biggest culprit. As an American, Meg can't wrap her head around the fact that no one hugs. Am I the only one who doesn't think it's that big a deal? Even during the docuseries, when Meg was talking about when Will and Kate came over, they weren't huggers, but that should be fine and not something to make a big deal out of. According to her, it's obvious that Kate and William do not approve of their choices, and that you could cut the tension with a knife. Rumors of a rift between the two duchesses have been dogging the royal family for some time. However, this damaging narrative really started to take root in 2019 when Markle guest edited the September issue of British Vogue. She neglected to put Middleton on the Female Forces for Change list featured in her issue. She also said that it would have been arrogant to appear on the cover herself, but Kate has appeared on the cover of the magazine in 2016. Did Meg just shade Kate?